And hello, welcome to episode 28 to the Foxhole feed. And oh boy, Sammy Megaton, happy Friday to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving and happy Black Friday to everybody who helped themselves to all that craziness last week. Didn't do an episode that day. Had tons upon tons of things to do, family, friends, festivities, and still had some news to go over. So still got some that same news that I actually filmed during that week that I'm going to actually disclose. But before I get to lots of the news that happened the week prior, I'd actually like to focus on the game award shows that happened last night. Now, lots of major announcements. I won't really cover too much of the awards. I'll go down on the list on everything that won, but I won't really cover my thoughts on it as I'm actually doing a podcast later today regarding anything that happened during that award show. So I won't really give my views on that. I'll just merely just tell you what the awards were. I'm actually more so going to focus on the announcements in terms of the games that were announced. So some games are announced, some that we knew of, some are, world premiere announcements. So let's get into it. Now, the footage you see here below you here is from Uncharted 4. They're displaying some new character that's part of the game. Looks pretty cute. Not really sure if she's a good guy. Not really sure if she's a bad guy. They show some little montage footage, showing some cool explosions. The set pieces look pretty grand. I'm not surprised that Uncharted 4 is there. I expected it to likely be there. Yeah, I guess that's all I gotta say about that. All I really gotta say about that is it existed and it was there, and you saw a new character. She looks pretty cute. And Shaq was there. Kind of strange. So Shaq was there to essentially present his new 2D Shaq Fu game, which it's like Shaq Fu Reborn or something. So it's kind of funny that he was there, and everyone's sort of making fun of the whole garbage Shaq Fu game, and now they're remaking it essentially. And it's basically called Shaq Fu Reborn, and he was on stage, and the game looks actually looks pretty good. The animates is pretty good, and from what I've seen from the very small trailer below, is that it actually doesn't look that terrible. Though not necessarily a game reveal, but a major announcement nonetheless. I actually believe this might be one of the, I don't want to say it's the biggest announcement that night. I would say it's one of the more interesting announcements regarding gaming, only because, gaming announcements in terms of a game getting announced is expected. This sort of isn't. Basically, they announced that, the major esports leagues are getting a network deal with TBS, which is, it's a pretty big deal. Which I think I don't want to share my views too deeply on it because I am going to be discussing lots of this on the podcast. I would say this, I don't really know how big of a deal this could be. I've talked about this many times with other gamers that, games change every couple of years, and who knows how big of a deal or nothing. This could be a big deal. This could ultimately be nothing. Who knows how big a deal this actually will be to some of these gamers. They're not going to be getting the same deals that all these other, sports athletes really get. And I don't know how strong that appeal would be for something that's an everyday thing. We don't even know if we could say games, have seasons. These people have these things all year round. So I don't know if it could govern that type of appeal. But, time will tell how big of a deal this actually is. One of my favorite announcements, which was rumored, but this rumor slept on me. If you guys didn't see it on the episode, I slept on it. And surprising, kind of awesome. Telltale is going to be making a Batman game. So this is kind of interesting. Telltale having their take on the Batman universe. Interesting because it's like they've had their take on some graphic novel stuff with The Wolf Among Us. They've had their taste of stuff with Game of Thrones. They've had their taste even with existing game IPs with Borderlands. So it seems like Telltale's sort of, dipping their hands in every, IP, regardless if it's a graphic novel stuff with Walking Dead or Wolf Among Us, or an existing game or a movie or a show or anything. So this is kind of cool. So I want to see their take on it. I like point and click games. Craig and I, the other member of Foxhole gaming channel, we like point and click adventure narrative type based games. He's a writer, so he likes those type of games that focus on that story element. I like it because sometimes as a gamer you want to take a break. Sometimes you want to play the story, and you want to experience that and change that, and sometimes those things are much more interesting. So I'd like to see how they take their take with Batman, and it's cool because it's like we haven't really seen them take on character as dynamic as the Dark Knight. This is kind of crazy because it's like how they gonna do fight sequences, and then who's it going to be about? Is it even going to be about Batman, or then could it be about somebody else? Could it be about multiple characters? So oh no, I'm very excited. And early 2016, so I'm very excited to see what it looks like, what the story's about. Very, very excited. I'll save my excitements for later. Another semi-world premiere that's on deck is Ubisoft shows off Primal, their new Far Cry Primal game. I don't even know if they needed to add the title of Far Cry, but and you know what, it's fine, it's fine. Far Cry Primal trailer shown. Interesting thing about this trailer, very cinematic, shows some gameplay portions. Looks very Far Cry in terms of the action, the combat, very naturey. Another thing to note about this trailer that they show is that they don't speak any English. There have been a couple games that have kind of went this full blown, you know, primal narrative of, they don't speak no English. That's actually the way it is in Ico, and I believe Shadow of the Colossus, if I'm not mistaken. They don't actually speak any English. So the characters in the game speak through subtitles, and they're speaking some language that you do not understand, which is kind of nice. I've always liked the idea of, you're playing some outer worldly, or some game in a time period set long ago, and clearly people don't speak no English. Kind of cool. Far Cry Primal is still stated to come out in February 2016. I was actually expecting a delay, but apparently there is no delay. It actually really is coming February, apparently. They're saying it's coming February, but yeah, who knows what could happen between now and final release. Who knows? They don't got too many trade shows to show off this game, too. They literally have PSX, which is December 5th and 6th, I believe. 5th, 6th, and 7th. They really only got literally a very small window to show this game off. One more trade show, to my understanding, which is small window, again, to advertise a game. Who knows if it really is coming on that date. But that remains to be seen. And into some of the major megatons. The Walking Dead Michonne has been announced. This was sort of like already known. It was like an existing thing, as Telltale already talked about having a Walking Dead game that was just going to be about Michonne. So they're finally showing its, first trailer, and it looks like it's discussing Michonne's past with her kids. So I definitely like that they're kind of going after one of the main characters, but it also doesn't seem like it's heading into the season 3 thing, as it doesn't state that. So they're sort of, in some weird way, showing that this is a side game to what they normally do with The Walking Dead, and I'm completely fine with that. Though Herschel's character and Glenn's character are briefly featured in the first Walking Dead, to my understanding, Walking Dead Season 2 has no one that's part of the main show that has anything to do with the actual graphic novel or the show or anything like that, which I actually like. Walking Dead Season 2 is its own thing. I like that the show remains to try to, or the game tries to remain to be its own thing, sort of like the show does. Some of the stuff that happens in the show doesn't happen in the graphic novel. There are characters that exist in the show that don't exist at all in the graphic novel, and I'm actually completely fine with that. I like that The Walking Dead, the game, is about the world, And that's what's so interesting about that IP to me is that, yeah, I read the graphic novel. Yeah, I watched the show. Maybe I don't want to just play a game that's just about the exact events I already know of. Just tell me about somebody that I've never heard of before and tell me their story through this apocalypse. So they're telling you Michonne's story. And I think it's kind of interesting that they're taking this take on it. I'm still interested because I love all the stuff they do. So I'm very excited to see that they're working on this game. But even more excited that they're not calling it season three. Even though it's the third game that they're doing, they're not calling it season three. So it's exactly the way I thought it was. I always believed that they were making the Michonne game as a side game, and by how they're titling it, that looks like that's actually true. One of the biggest announcements, my opinion, is probably the biggest announcement of the show. It's probably Psychonauts 2. Though Tim Schafer has sort of rumored and talked about the possibility of him creating another Psychonauts game. And he's talked about if they crowdfunded it, he would do it. He's talked about if people voiced their concerns about it, he would make it happen. He's openly talked about it. I know Notch, who did the Minecraft series, openly stated that if Tim Schafer was down to actually do a Psychonauts 2, he stated he would fund and pay for the whole thing. And I remember him tweeting these things. And it was funny because the man has hundreds of millions. He has, hundreds of millions, literally, and yeah, he could probably do that and still be okay. He could literally give them 40, 50, 60 million dollars and he would probably still be okay and still that wouldn't make a dent in his earnings. So Psychonauts 2 was announced. They, show a trailer of some of the characters. Craig, which is a member of the FOXHOLE team, was ecstatic. When I tell you he's ecstatic, it was reminiscent of when they announced Final Fantasy VII and Horizon and not Horizon, or Final Fantasy VII and Shenmue 3. Very reminiscent of that. So this is a game that he really likes. I personally like it. It's one of my favorite Tim Schafer games. I don't hate the guy, but my favorite of all his work is actually Psychonauts. So it's cool to see Psychonauts 2 come to fruition. And yeah, one of the craziest announcements. That's not to say that the rest of the stuff I'm going to talk about today not going to be that serious, but I will tell you that this is one of those top announcements. Chris Roberts, director of Star Citizen, talked about this game numerous times in the cast. Love the game, huge fanboy of it. And some guy, Mark Hamill, I don't know, some clown. Apparently, both of them there at the awards show. I don't even remember the actual award that they were even like nominating or announcing. Or I don't remember. I don't care. It wasn't even that big a deal to me. And yeah, they're both there. Show off a new trailer for Star Citizen. While they're actually there, it's funny because you know, Mark Hamill's like begging Chris Roberts if, for him to be on the cover of Star Citizen, of Squadron 42, Star Citizen single player. And I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, they show a new trailer. Trailer shows all, a lot of persistent universe stuff. Shows guys going into, big plane and then, or going into a big ship and then going outside a ship, and it shows a multi-cockpit crew, and then it shows like them going towards like a planet to go, inside atmosphere stuff. So I like to see them showing persistent universe stuff because that is the overall concept people want out of Star Citizen. It's the overall concept people, in my opinion, they're there to see. They want to see the meat and potatoes, and the meat and potatoes really is that persistent universe. It really is. Let me go into a ship, get out of a ship, go in said ship, go to a planet in real time, land in said planet, and then get said things off of this planet, whatever we would say, resources off of this planet, leave that planet in real time, go to another planet and sell said goods, or hey, go to a space station and sell said goods. That's it. If Star Citizen is just that, I would be happy. Consider we do that in a lot of games already, just in a different, just in a different way. Consider that's a lot of the concept of what Fallout is I'm going to go inside of, this desolate factory, house, store, shop, and the place being desolate sometimes tells you the story about humanity, and you sort of get this idea about what was this place like before the fallout. And you go and you loot the crap out of that place. You leave, and then you go to a place where it's populated and you sell the stuff that you got. A lot of that really is the game. And Star Citizen, I sort of, in some respect, want it to be a lot of that. Of go to a planet, not knowing what's there, whether it's aliens, whether it's more life, whether it's nothing, and take the resources that I craft in, that is of my profession, and then leave. That's really what I think most kind of wants from Star Citizen. This trailer looks amazing, and yeah, we're excited for it. I know they're sort of they probably didn't want to talk about a release date. I think they're still gunning for ending of 2016, but I think people wanted more concrete stuff. I don't even know if you could really say there's a real release date for a title like this other than, a rough release. Now, the games that won these awards, I'm not going to go off and say every single last nomination, with the exceptions of, the very last Game of the Year award. Yeah, we're just going to go off and say everything that won everything, and what was the category. Now, for Best Multiplayer Game, Splatoon won. For Best Esports Team, it was Optic Gaming. For Best Narrative Story, it was a game called Her Story. For Best, I believe it was Best Journalist or Best Gaming Influence, I don't recall the name at this moment, it was Greg Miller. And I know some people were nominated I even knew. PewDiePie was one of them, but Greg Miller ultimately took that award. Best Indie Game was actually Rocket League. The Best Developer of the Year was actually CD Projekt Red. Best Art Direction was Ori and the Blind Forest. The best team in terms of Lifetime Achievement Award, I don't even know if I think it was Lifetime Achievement Award. I don't recall the title that they got. And it was actually Blizzard. They went on and had a pretty nice ceremony where they went on and basically, not ceremony or a video where they go to talk about Blizzard's history with RTS games and the company they were before they were Blizzard. And that was pretty good. That was actually pretty good. Best action game was actually Metal Gear Solid 5. Best soundtrack, even though they didn't have like a thing for it, was actually Metal Gear Solid 5. And I'm actually going to go into that before after I'm done with this, which is kind of weird. I believe Best Voiceover or Best Voice Performance was, again, Her Story, indie game on Steam. And the overall Game of the Year award, the nominees were Bloodborne, Fallout 4, Witcher, and Metal Gear Solid 5, and The Witcher 3 is overall Game of the Year award. Yeah, there are other nominations that went on for the award show, like they had Best Soundtrack, but they were never really covered. Even Best RPG, I think, went to The Witcher, but they have other nominations there that almost got zero attention. I'm only going to give my opinion on this briefly since we have an entire, podcast in which we're going to discuss lots of things regarding the actual announcement. But yeah, I'd like to say briefly, I didn't really like how that was done. I mean, there's of course lots of great things that they did show there, but the problem I had was some of the things that were shown or announced, it was like, couldn't these had not been there in place of actually having specific categories to specific genres? Consider that you have somebody go out, and say all the nominations and give a trophy and award to something, yet we saw nothing like that for RPG of the Year. We saw nothing like that for Racer of the Year. We saw nothing like that for all these other genres that were just completely neglected. I can't even say there was something that was like Best First-Person Shooter of the Year or anything like that. These award shows, are almost a disrespect to gaming. I think people think like, oh yeah, this is great, and gaming's getting there. It's like, I don't know if I want to say all that, because it seems like, what are we saying, this is the best by what, default? Other award shows don't have to deal with this type of clownery. How many award shows have you seen where they use the time to tell you about a movie versus tell you about an award in a specific genre of a film? I don't believe that. And I don't see that get done. I've never seen where it's like, we won't tell you who's R&B album of the year because we're busy showing you someone else's album that's marketing, that's going to come out and turns out the person who was R&B album of the year won it, but you just didn't hear about it, and we're gonna post it on the site. Kind of fucking award show does that. So I did not, quite frankly, care about that. I thought that was questionable, but I will state more of my feelings on that, I would say, later on. Other notable things that were talked about and announced at the trade show was Rocket League is coming to the Xbox One in February. I don't even think they needed to have a big world premiere announcement thing for that. I think that's kind of an inevitability. It was coming to the platform. I don't know if that's a major announcement that should have been there. They had a nice little tribute for Satoru Iwata. Felt it actually could have been done better. I actually felt it was pretty bad. Could have been done better. Quantum Break showed a trailer. Showed a lot of cinematics, sort of talks about the story, but story, to me and Craig, I don't know why the story is still like questionable with Craig and I, we just don't really know what's going on with it. Maybe that's a purposeful thing. Maybe, we have to play the game to get it type of deal. I don't want to call him out too much. I don't think that's nice. Yeah, what if that's the point of it? So I don't want to say like that's a bad thing, because maybe they want you to only know that he got his powers, but maybe the big point of the story is how. They also showed Rise of the Tomb Raider's like first story-based DLC. It's called like Baba Yaga or something, and it's like some temple of the witch. Why was that there? I don't even know. So yeah, it was an interesting, trade show, and we're gonna go over some other stuff. We're gonna go over the rest of the news. I'll go over the rest of the announcements, I would say, that's happened this past week outside of these game announcements. In some non-game of the year award show announcement, yeah, it's got some news that has nothing to do with that trade show, all the megatons. Apparently Warner Brothers Montreal currently set on working on 2 games set in the DC universe. I don't know if we even want these fucking games. Now, they're apparently, right now, they're working on the PC version of Batman Arkham Knight, which is just fucking riddled with bugs, to my understanding. That game is fucking smoked with bugs. And they're essentially fixing it up, has lots of bugs, lots of issues, and they're out there, making it work. And apparently the rumor is that it is a Batman game set between Origins and Asylum, and the other game is a Suicide Squad game. Now, these are just both rumors, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. No word on if Rocksteady's doing one. To my understanding, Rocksteady stated that they're not doing another Batman game, so we don't really know what Rocksteady's actually currently contracted to make. Who knows? For all we know, they probably purposely said that so they could, so they could redo their contract. They might be trying to get a better deal for their next project, so it wouldn't necessarily shock me if that's the case. Or maybe not, or maybe Warner Brothers wants them working on something else. So who knows? Maybe they're doing it for another project, or maybe they really are legitimately working on a completely different game. They could be working on another game in the DC universe. For all we know, the Suicide Squad is actually they did say Montreal, so that's the team that was doing it. Oh, who knows? Who knows what they're currently working on right now? They could be working on a DC game, they could not be. Now into some rumor news. Danny Ross, developer at Rockstar Games, has some tweets, has some Reddit posts regarding Red Dead Redemption, or excuse me, Red Dead. I don't really know if it's going to follow the Redemption story arc. More than likely it's going to be its own thing, considering the last several, Red Deads. But apparently sort of giving some hints out that their next game might essentially be the sequel or the trilogy. It's going to be Red Dead 3. Easy assumption. I mean, that's an easy guess that it's probably going to be that, as Rockstar with their teams in San Diego and Vermont always seem to cycle big development stuff. So I'm not really surprised that Red Dead or Red Dead 3 would be the next game that they would likely bring out. Somewhat surprising. Maybe we'll see it at I know there's a Game Award show, Spike's Game Award show on the 3rd. Maybe we'll see it then. Maybe we'll see it at, Sony's, PSX event. Maybe we'll see it at E3. Who knows? I mean, Take-Two has already stated that they, have lots of games in the pipeline that are coming down, and this very much could be one of them. My assumption is easy that it's going to be this game. It's like we had an assumption with Fallout, being the game prior to Elder Scrolls. Sometimes you could sort of guess companies like release patterns based on historically what they've released. So I think a lot of people kind of felt that, Rockstar's first big, next generation game was going to be Red Dead, more so than, GTA, as GTA sort of come later down the line. So yeah, I mean, semi-news. I think everyone's sort of expecting a game did like 14 million or something, so it's like I think everyone was sort of expecting a sequel. And talk about rumor news. Now, had rumor of Red Dead, had rumor of Take-Two working on Warner Brothers working on 2 other DC games. This just went from a slight rumor to holy fuck confirmed. Capcom trademarks the Onimusha franchise. Yes, 100%. Capcom just trademarked Onimusha. Pretty big deal, pretty big megaton. So, who knows why they're trademarking this? This is kind of crazy. I'm excited about it. I'm a big Onimusha fan. Love the fucking series. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. They're trademarking Onimusha. And I'm really ecstatic about that. And what if this is something we see at PSX 2015? Who knows? Maybe they're trademarking this, days before. Mind you, this was trademarked on the 1st. So maybe they're trademarking this days before, because that's what the big reveal is going to be, is Onimusha is going to be made on there. I'm even calling out that Onimusha would be made on there and possibly exclusive on the PlayStation 4. If you consider Capcom did release something earlier saying that they were going to make more PlayStation focused games, I guess in the vein of what they see Square doing and what they see Sega doing in terms of focusing on Japanese consoles and focusing on singular platforms. Maybe that's what they're doing with Onimusha. They know it's a niche series, and I think they just want to save their money. So oh god, please let there be Onimusha 5. You guys already had backwards compatibility confirmed for emulation, and I want to sit there, and I recently played and beat the first 2 Onimusha games on my PlayStation 2, and I'm just like, I don't want to bring that thing back out. Go ahead and announce Onimusha 5, alright, so I could sit there and get all hot. Oh boy, my goodness. Now in other news, not really so megaton, I would say semi-megaton. Some of this is expected, but not in the fashion in which EA reveals this. I believe EA most likely revealed this merely to, I guess, let their shareholders know that they're in good standing. I guess that's the best thing to sort of describe it as. Now, they were at an event called the ATMTC, which is apparently looks like it's some annual technology, media, and telecom conference. I guess they were just there to likely let people know they were in good standing. So they go on to state that Titanfall 2's launch window seems like it's going to be probably around ending of this year, ending of 2016, ending of next year, which I'm not surprised at, because we didn't really see anything regarding this game, so I'm not really that shocked that it would be the ending of next year. I couldn't say spring, I couldn't even say summer, because it's like, well, where's the marketing push for this title? It's not a small title by any means. It's a pretty big title. Mirrors, so they go on to state that they got Mirror's Edge coming up. They also go on to state that they have a Battlefield title that's coming out the ending of 2016, and they state that the EA is going to unveil more details regarding Titanfall 2 and also Battlefield at E3 2016. Now, they're not really saying Battlefield 5, which is very interesting, because they are stating Titanfall 2, but they're not necessarily saying. Well, actually, now that I'm reading this, I'm wrong on that, because they actually state, they only state new Mass Effect, new Battlefield, new Titanfall. I guess they're not really going to specifics of either one, even though we know that one's subtitled Andromeda. We know Mirror's Edge is also subtitled like Catalyst Edge or Catalyst something, and we also know that Titanfall is Titanfall 2. So maybe they're just doing that just because. Maybe I might be looking too deep into that. Now, I'm assuming it's going to be Battlefield 5, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was just, Battlefield subtitle, or it could be Battlefield Bad Company 3, which is kind of exciting if it is. I might be leaning towards BF5, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did do a Bad Company game, if you consider we've had, 2 consecutive Battlefield games, numbered. So maybe I'm wrong on that. So, yeah, so they're sort of, ghost confirming this, which is kind of weird to do. They just have sort of a stealth confirm, but I think we all knew a new Battlefield was being worked on at DICE. I've said this numerous times. DICE is a huge team. You're not talking about a small team. You're talking about a pretty massive team. They have over 700, 800 staff, and at any time they could be split making, 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. They could be split making multiple projects. I remember reading when they were talking about Battlefront, and one of the things I remember reading was that, they had an environment that was very laid back, and they sort of asked the team, how much you guys want to work on Star Wars, which one of you guys want to work on Battlefield, almost as if to suggest that, was there a Battlefield that was being worked on openly that still continued to be worked on, and the other half of the team worked on Star Wars, the other half of the team worked on, Battlefield. So, who knows? I mean, you have to consider it's a team of 700. I might consider maybe 100 to 200 might be working on Mirror's Edge, but even that's kind of a stretch. That's a lot of members, and I don't know if it's really that much. So yeah, you really have to question how long they've been working on it. For all we know, they've been probably working on this Battlefield since Battlefield 4 released 2013, so they could have even been working on it even longer than that, so we don't really know. Well, you probably hear the details on E3, but I'm excited nonetheless of a new Battlefield being announced. So we're gonna end this out. FOXHOLE feed, let you guys know. Stay tuned. December 6th, December 5th, PlayStation Experience. I'm gonna do another show then to detail all the news that goes on, and that's gonna be just as meaty because it's gonna focus more so on that, considering it's a trade show and it's not necessarily a award show with other announcements. I'll talk about me not liking how that went, for another date. So December 5th, December 6th, you guys be on the lookout for, PlayStation Experience. I'll put a link below. Yeah, be on the lookout for it. I'm going to be covering a show talking about everything that gets announced. Lots of announcements. In fact, actually, before I even roll out on the ending of this, I'd like to say what my guesses are going to be. So I have a few guesses on what I sort of have out there for what I think might be announced, might not be announced. So yeah, I think so. I think Uncharted is going to be shown. That's an easy one. I think that Red Dead 3 could potentially be possibly shown as well. Considering I talked about that earlier, that it's rumored, but it's an inevitability. It could be shown there. I know everybody loves to get it like a kickoff, before E3, and everybody wants to be that one team that's out before every other team. So that's a huge possibility. That Sony Bend is going to show their horror game that I've been sort of showing the rumor stuff of. Sony Santa Monica, had a little tease regarding their next game that's going to be coming out, and the little tease, I'll leave a link below to you guys, essentially shows like some woman's shoes walking, and it clearly it's a game with a female protagonist, which is kind of interesting. So could be new IP territory. I mean, they've stated that they're working on a 4th God of War, and it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of were just trolling people and they were really working on a new IP and we've just never seen it coming. Or it wouldn't surprise me that this is just a part of Sony Santa Monica. Sony Santa Monica is a team that's almost like 1,000 members or something crazy. So they're kind of like 3 teams in one, or 4 teams in one, or something like that. So maybe this is just one of their games, and maybe we kind of confuse them working on God of War 4 with some of them working on God of War 4. So yeah, lots of things could get announced. I think many people need to always remember that crazy things were announced and revealed. at, you know, PSX last year. You know, consider Street Fighter V was shown there, so I always let people know that don't sleep on this event, because this event could have some huge megatons. So I think that we're going to see more from, you know, Media Molecule's Hunger. There's new titles coming out. We might see Sucker Punch's new IP, if you consider that they haven't shown anything regarding it. We might get some details on PlayStation VR in terms of a release window, maybe a price. They sounds like they want to gear this product to release in summer. If that's the case, then it also means that, you know, it could also be releasing with No Man's Sky. So that's another possibility. So we got lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of what ifs and what could be's. And I might save some of those, you know, for podcast no. Those are my solid predictions, and that's it. We'll see if I'm right on the 5th. So 5th and the 6th, we'll see if I'm correct on, you know, what might be announced there. So looks like that's it for the Foxhole feed. And yeah, see you guys on the 5th, on Saturday and Sunday. And yeah, that's game.